My name is Columbus, and at 23, I had just graduated with honors in engineering. After years of hard work, I was genuinely excited about the family celebration my parents had planned. I arrived at the upscale venue wearing my cap and gown, pride swelling in my chest. But before I could step inside, Aunt Fiona intercepted me at the entrance. "Sorry, Columbus, this gathering is just for close family," she said coldly. Through the window, I saw everyone else already inside celebrating. Without a word, I removed my cap and gown, turned to leave, and simply said, "Guess I will celebrate elsewhere." That was when I noticed my dad following me out, his face a mask of shock. If you are watching this right now, let me know where you are from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever felt excluded by the people who should have celebrated you the most. This story might help you realize you are not alone. To understand why being excluded from my own graduation party hurt so deeply, you need to know a bit about my family history. My parents divorced when I was 8 years old. My father, Gabriel, and my mother, Eleanor, had a turbulent marriage that eventually crumbled under the weight of constant disagreements and different life priorities. After the divorce, I primarily lived with my dad. He was a hardworking man who held down 2 jobs to make sure I had everything I needed. Despite his exhaustion, he never missed my school events. He would show up straight from work, sometimes still in his uniform, but he was always there, sitting in the audience with a proud smile on his face. My relationship with my mother's side of the family was complicated from the beginning, but it became especially strained after the divorce. My mother's sister, Aunt Fiona, took it upon herself to become the matriarch of the family after my grandparents passed away. She was controlling, judgmental, and had very clear ideas about who deserved to be in the family's good graces. Unfortunately for me, being my father's son put me at an automatic disadvantage in her eyes. Aunt Fiona had 2 children of her own, my cousins Travis and Alyssa. It was painfully obvious from early on that she favored them over me. At family gatherings, Travis and Alyssa would receive expensive gifts, while I would get gift cards or generic presents that showed little thought. During holiday meals, they would be seated at the main table while I would often find myself at the kids' table, even as a teenager when my cousins the same age were welcomed among the adults. There was a pattern of subtle exclusion that repeated itself throughout my childhood and teenage years. Sometimes, I would learn about family trips only after seeing photos on social media. Birthday celebrations for my cousins were lavish affairs with extensive planning, while mine were often forgotten or acknowledged with just a text message. My accomplishments in school were downplayed, while my cousins' achievements were celebrated and announced to everyone. Throughout all of this, my father remained my rock. He could not provide the extravagant material things that Aunt Fiona gave her children, but he gave me something far more valuable: unconditional love and support. When I made the honor roll, he would take me out for ice cream. When I won the science fair, he framed my certificate and hung it on our living room wall. He taught me to value myself, not by what others thought of me, but by my own efforts and integrity. My mother, on the other hand, grew increasingly distant over the years. She remarried when I was 12 to a man named Walter who seemed nice enough but had little interest in building a relationship with me. As time went on, my mother seemed to fall more and more under Aunt Fiona's influence. Our weekly visits became monthly, then only on holidays, and even those felt forced and uncomfortable. Despite these challenges, I focused on my education. I worked multiple jobs throughout high school and college, sometimes juggling 3 part-time positions while maintaining a high GPA. I was determined to create a future for myself through hard work and perseverance. The turning point came during my junior year of high school when I earned a prestigious scholarship that would cover most of my college expenses. It was a competitive national program that selected only 30 students across the country. When I received the news, my father cried with pride. My mother congratulated me over the phone but declined to attend the award ceremony, citing prior commitments with Aunt Fiona's family. College was transformative for me. Away from the complicated dynamics of my family, I thrived. I made genuine friends who appreciated me for who I was, not where I came from or what I could offer them. I connected with professors who recognized my potential and challenged me to grow. One professor in particular, Dr. Wilson, became a mentor to me. He saw something in me that I had not yet fully seen in myself, and his guidance helped shape not just my academic journey, but my sense of self-worth. Throughout college, I maintained a relationship with my father through weekly phone calls and monthly visits. My contact with my mother became increasingly sporadic, limited to occasional text messages and obligatory holiday gatherings where Aunt Fiona's disapproving presence always made me feel like an intruder. As graduation approached, I foolishly allowed myself to hope that my achievement might finally earn me a place of respect within my extended family. I had worked so hard, overcome so many obstacles, and was graduating with honors from a prestigious engineering program. Surely, I thought, this would be enough to make them proud, to make them see me as someone worthy of inclusion. I could not have been more wrong. My final semester of college was both exhilarating and exhausting. I was working on my senior project, a sustainable energy solution that had caught the attention of several faculty members. My team and I had been selected to present our work at a regional engineering conference, adding another layer of preparation to my already packed schedule. Simultaneously, I was interviewing for jobs. The job market for engineers was competitive, but my academic record and the recommendation from Dr. Wilson opened doors at several respected firms. After multiple rounds of interviews, I received an offer from Anderson Engineering, a top firm known for its innovative approach and competitive salary. When I called my father to share the news, his voice cracked with emotion. "I always knew you would do amazing things, Columbus," he said. "You have worked so hard for this. I cannot wait to watch you walk across that stage." My father immediately began planning to attend my graduation ceremony. He requested time off work months in advance, bought a new suit he could barely afford, and even arranged for a professional photographer to capture the moment I received my diploma. His excitement was palpable in every conversation we had. My mother's response to my graduation was markedly different. When I first mentioned the date to her, she hesitated, saying she would have to check her calendar. It was only after my third reminder, just 2 weeks before the ceremony, that she finally confirmed she would attend. There was no mention of bringing Walter, her husband. A week before graduation, I learned that Aunt Fiona had taken over planning the celebration that would follow the ceremony. My father had initially suggested a small gathering at his favorite local restaurant, but somehow Aunt Fiona had inserted herself into the arrangements. She had booked an upscale waterfront venue and taken charge of the guest list. When my father mentioned this development to me, a sense of unease settled in my stomach, but I pushed it aside. This was supposed to be a happy occasion, and I did not want to taint it with negative expectations. The day before graduation, my father and I went shopping for the perfect outfit to wear under my gown. We settled on a crisp blue shirt that matched my eyes and a tie with subtle silver stripes. My father insisted on buying me new shoes as well, brushing aside my protests about the cost. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime moment," he said firmly. "Let me do this for you." That night, we had dinner at our favorite diner, the same one we had gone to after every major milestone in my life. Over burgers and fries, we reminisced about the journey that had led me to this point. "I want you to know," my father said, his eyes serious, "that no matter what happens tomorrow with the rest of the family, I could not be prouder of you. You have become a man of integrity and determination, and that matters more than any degree." The morning of graduation dawned bright and clear. I woke early, a mixture of nerves and excitement, making it impossible to sleep any longer. I carefully ironed my shirt and polished my new shoes. My father made breakfast, his specialty of pancakes and bacon, just as he had on my first day of kindergarten, high school, and college. The graduation ceremony was held in the university's grand auditorium. As I sat among my fellow graduates, I scanned the audience, quickly spotting my father in the 5th row, center section. He was early, of course, and had secured one of the best seats in the house. I kept looking for my mother, but did not see her until just before the ceremony began. She slipped into a seat near the back, noticeably far from where my father was sitting. The ceremony itself was a blur of speeches, applause, and the rustle of gowns as students rose to receive their diplomas. The valedictorian, a friend from my engineering program, gave a moving speech about perseverance and future possibilities. When it was my turn to cross the stage, I heard my father's distinct whistle and cheer from the audience. As I accepted my diploma, I glanced toward him and saw him standing, tears streaming unashamedly down his face. After the ceremony, graduates and families mingled in the courtyard outside the auditorium. My father found me immediately, enveloping me in a bear hug that nearly lifted me off the ground. "You did it, son," he whispered in my ear. "You really did it." My mother approached a few minutes later. Her congratulations seemed genuine but brief. She mentioned that she needed to coordinate with Aunt Fiona about the celebration and quickly excused herself, promising to see me at the venue later. My best friend Patrick found me in the crowd. We had met during freshman orientation and had been inseparable throughout our college years. After congratulating me and shaking hands with my father, he pulled me aside with a concerned expression. "I overheard something I think you should know," he said in a low voice. "Your aunt was talking to your mom earlier, and it sounded weird. Something about arrangements and who belongs where." I could not hear everything, but it did not sound good. I appreciated Patrick's concern, but dismissed it. Family drama was nothing new, and I refused to let it taint this day. "It will be fine," I assured him. "Everyone is just stressed about the logistics. I will see you at the celebration later, right?" Patrick nodded, though he still looked worried. With a final congratulatory hug, we parted ways. I joined my father, and together, we headed toward the parking lot to drive to the celebration venue. Despite my outward confidence, Patrick's warning had planted a seed of anxiety in my mind. Still, I was determined to approach the celebration with optimism. After all, this was supposed to be my day. How wrong I was about to discover I had been. The celebration venue Aunt Fiona had chosen was an upscale waterfront restaurant known for its elegant ambiance and exclusive clientele. As my father and I pulled into the parking lot, I noticed that all the family cars were already there. My mother's sedan, Aunt Fiona's luxury SUV, Uncle Thomas's truck, and various vehicles belonging to extended family members lined the spaces closest to the entrance. "Looks like everyone beat us here," my father remarked as he parked. "They must have left right after the ceremony." I nodded, a small knot of tension forming in my stomach. It seemed odd that no one had waited for us, considering I was the graduate being celebrated. Still, I brushed aside the thought. Perhaps they were simply eager to get the party set up. I got out of the car, carefully adjusting my graduation cap and gown. I had chosen to keep them on for the celebration, proud of the honors cords that signified my academic achievements. My father walked beside me, his new suit crisp and his smile wide with pride. As we approached the restaurant's entrance, I saw Aunt Fiona standing just outside the door. Her expression was not the welcoming one I might have expected on such an occasion. Instead, her lips were pressed into a thin line, and her eyes were cold as they fixed on me. "Columbus," she said, stepping forward to intercept us before we could reach the door. "I need to speak with you." My father and I stopped, exchanging a quick glance of confusion. "What is it, Fiona?" my father asked, his tone cautious. Aunt Fiona barely acknowledged him, keeping her attention focused on me. "I am afraid there has been a misunderstanding," she said, her voice carrying that artificially polite tone she always used when delivering unpleasant news. This gathering is just for close family members. For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. The statement was so absurd, so completely nonsensical in the context, that my brain struggled to process it. "What are you talking about?" my father demanded, his confusion quickly shifting to anger. "This is Columbus's graduation celebration. He is the reason we are all here." Aunt Fiona finally turned to look at my father, her expression unchanged. "Gabriel, I think you know that family situations are complex. Eleanor and I decided that this particular gathering should be limited to immediate family." "I am immediate family," I said, finding my voice at last. "I am literally the graduate this party is supposedly for." "Well, yes. Technically," Aunt Fiona replied, her tone dismissive. "But we are trying to keep things harmonious. You understand." I did not understand. Not at all. Confused and increasingly hurt, I stepped to the side and peered through the restaurant's large front window. Inside, I could see the entire extended family gathered around elegantly set tables. My mother was there, laughing with Travis and Alyssa. Uncle Thomas and his wife were chatting with my cousins from my mother's side. Even distant relatives I barely knew were present, all enjoying what was supposed to be my celebration. In that moment, the truth hit me like a physical blow. This was not a misunderstanding. This was deliberate exclusion. The celebration had been planned with the specific intention of keeping me out, while including everyone else. The realization was so painful, so shocking, that for a moment, I could not breathe. I stood there, still in my cap and gown, the symbols of my achievement, suddenly feeling heavy and ridiculous. Through the window, I could see my mother glance in our direction, then quickly look away, continuing her conversation, as if nothing was wrong. She knew. She had known all along that I would be turned away at the door of my own graduation party. A battle raged within me. Part of me wanted to push past Aunt Fiona, to storm into the restaurant, and demand an explanation from everyone present. How could they sit there, celebrating my achievement without me? How could my mother allow this to happen? But another part of me, the part that had endured years of subtle rejection and had learned to protect myself from further hurt, knew that forcing my way in would only lead to more pain and humiliation. I would be begging for inclusion from people who had already decided I did not belong. With slow, deliberate movements, I removed my graduation cap. Then I slipped off the gown, carefully folding it over my arm. The honors cords I had been so proud of earlier now seemed meaningless. "I see," I said, surprised by the steadiness of my voice despite the turmoil inside me. "I guess I will celebrate elsewhere." I turned to leave, dignity intact, despite the crushing weight of rejection. As I did, I caught sight of my father through the window. He had been watching the interaction from inside, having entered through another door while Aunt Fiona was speaking to me. His expression transformed from joy to confusion to horror in the span of seconds as he realized what was happening. He immediately moved toward the door, pushing past relatives who seemed oblivious to the drama unfolding. As I walked toward the parking lot, I heard the restaurant door swing open behind me. "Columbus! Wait!" my father called, his voice rough with emotion. I turned to see him hurrying toward me, his face a mixture of shock and outrage. "What the hell is going on?" Before I could answer, Aunt Fiona emerged from the restaurant behind him, her composure slightly ruffled, now that her plan was not proceeding as smoothly as she had expected. "Gabriel, please," she said, "do not make a scene. We agreed this was for the best." My father whirled to face her, his expression thunderous. "We did not agree to anything. This is my son's graduation party. Who gave you the right to turn him away?" As they argued, I stood silently in the parking lot, still clutching my folded gown, watching as my graduation celebration continued inside without me, feeling more like an outsider than I ever had before. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red as he confronted Aunt Fiona in the parking lot. I had never seen him this angry before, not even during the worst days of the divorce. "Gabriel, you need to calm down," Aunt Fiona said, glancing nervously at the restaurant windows where curious faces had begun to appear. "This is not the place for one of your outbursts." "Outbursts?" my father repeated incredulously. "You just turned my son away from his own graduation celebration, and you are worried about me causing a scene? What is wrong with you, Fiona?" He turned to me, his eyes softening as they met mine. "Columbus, I had no idea about any of this. I would never have agreed to come if I had known." "I know, Dad," I said quietly. The hurt was still raw, but I was determined not to break down in front of Aunt Fiona. "This is not your fault," Aunt Fiona sighed dramatically, as if we were being unreasonable children she had to manage. "If you must know, this arrangement was discussed extensively with Eleanor. We agreed that certain tensions would be avoided if the celebration was limited to actual family members." "Actual family members?" My father's voice rose dangerously. "Columbus is Eleanor's son. He is the reason for this entire event." "Well, technically, yes," Aunt Fiona replied, her tone maddeningly condescending. "But you know as well as I do, Gabriel, that Columbus has never really been part of our family, not in the ways that matter." Her words hung in the air like poison. I had suspected for years that this was how she felt, but hearing it stated so baldly, so unapologetically, was still shocking. "What did you just say?" my father whispered, his voice now eerily calm. Before Aunt Fiona could respond, the restaurant door opened again, and my mother emerged, looking flustered. She approached our group with hesitant steps, her eyes darting between us nervously. "What is going on out here?" she asked. "People are starting to notice. Did you know about this?" "Eleanor," my father demanded, "did you know Fiona was planning to exclude Columbus from his own graduation party?" My mother's eyes could not meet mine, and in that moment, I had my answer. The betrayal cut deep, far deeper than Aunt Fiona's predictable cruelty. "Mom," I said, hating the way my voice cracked slightly on the word. "You knew?" "Columbus, honey. It is complicated," she began, her hands fluttering anxiously. "Fiona thought it would be better this way, more comfortable for everyone if we kept things contained." "Contained?" I repeated. "What does that even mean?" "It means," Aunt Fiona interjected, "that this celebration is for people who are actually part of our social circle, people who belong." "Fiona," my mother gasped, but she made no move to contradict her sister's statement. My father stepped forward, placing himself physically between Aunt Fiona and me. "Listen to me very carefully," he said, his voice trembling with barely controlled rage. "My son has accomplished something extraordinary today. He has graduated with honors despite receiving absolutely no support from you or your social circle. He has worked harder than anyone I know, holding down multiple jobs while maintaining perfect grades. He has earned every accolade he received today." "Gabriel, always so dramatic." Aunt Fiona sighed. "This is exactly the kind of scene we were hoping to avoid." "The scene you were hoping to avoid," my father continued as if she had not spoken, "was having to acknowledge that Columbus has succeeded despite your constant attempts to make him feel worthless. You have been poisoning this family against him since he was a child, and I have had enough." The restaurant door opened again, and Patrick appeared, looking concerned. He must have arrived for the celebration and sensed something was wrong. He approached cautiously, coming to stand beside me in a silent show of support. "Everything okay here?" he asked quietly. "No," I replied honestly. "Not really." More movement at the restaurant entrance caught my attention. My Uncle Thomas, my father's brother, was now standing in the doorway, watching the confrontation with a frown. After a moment's hesitation, he walked toward us. "What is going on?" he asked as he joined our increasingly tense gathering. "Why is everyone out here instead of inside?" "Ask Fiona," my father said grimly. "She has decided that my son is not family enough to attend his own graduation party." Uncle Thomas looked shocked. "What? That is ridiculous." He turned to me with genuine confusion. "Columbus, this whole thing was organized for you. What is this nonsense about you not being invited?" Before I could respond, Aunt Fiona stepped forward. "Thomas, please go back inside. This is a family matter." "He is family," Uncle Thomas said firmly, gesturing toward me. "And I want to know what the hell is going on here." The tension was escalating, and I suddenly felt exhausted. This was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, a celebration of years of hard work and perseverance. Instead, it had devolved into this ugly confrontation in a restaurant parking lot. "I think I understand now," I said, my voice cutting through the arguing. Everyone fell silent, turning to look at me. "This was never really about me or my graduation. This is about some vendetta you have against my father. Is not it, Aunt Fiona?" Aunt Fiona's expression hardened. "You have no idea what you are talking about." "I think I do," I continued, the pieces finally falling into place. "You have resented my father since the divorce. Maybe even before that. And, because I am his son, you have transferred that resentment to me. That is why you have always treated me differently from Travis and Alyssa. That is why you have consistently tried to push me out of family gatherings. It was never about me at all." My mother made a small, distressed sound. "Columbus, that is not true. Fiona has always wanted what is best for the family." "Stop it, Mom," I said, suddenly tired of the pretense. "You have been enabling her behavior for years. You chose her approval over your relationship with me so many times that I have lost count. And today, you let her bar me from my own graduation celebration. How could you do that?" My mother's eyes filled with tears, but for once, I felt no urge to comfort her or smooth things over. I had spent too many years making excuses for her behavior, too many years pretending that her emotional neglect did not hurt. "I think I should go," I said quietly. "This is not how I want to remember today." "You are not going anywhere," my father said firmly. "If anyone is leaving, it is them. This celebration was for you, and by God, you are going to have it." "Actually," Patrick interjected, "I might have a better solution. My parents are hosting a barbecue at our house tonight. They would be thrilled to turn it into a graduation celebration for Columbus. They have always thought of him as a second son anyway." I looked at Patrick gratefully, touched by his offer and the understanding in his eyes. "That sounds perfect," my father said, before anyone else could respond. "Columbus, what do you think?" I nodded, relieved at the prospect of escaping this toxic situation. "Yes, I would like that." "You cannot just leave," my mother protested weakly. "What will everyone think?" "I do not care what they think," I replied, surprising myself with my calm certainty. "For once in my life, Mom, I am choosing my own well-being over your social concerns. You should try it sometime." With those words, I turned and walked toward my father's car, leaving behind the celebration that was never truly meant for me, but taking with me a new understanding of my worth and the people who genuinely valued me. The drive away from the restaurant was silent at first. My father gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white, and I could feel the waves of anger and hurt radiating from him. Patrick followed in his car, occasionally flashing his headlights, as if to reassure us that he was still there. After several minutes, my father let out a long, shuddering breath. "Columbus, I am so sorry," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I had no idea they were planning something like this." If I had known. I know, Dad. I interrupted gently. This is not your fault. But it is, he insisted. I should have protected you better. All these years, I have tried to maintain a civil relationship with your mother and her family for your sake, thinking it was the right thing to do. But maybe I just enabled their treatment of you. You have always been there for me, I said firmly. You cannot control how they behave, but you have never failed to show me what real support looks like. That matters more than anything else. He reached over and squeezed my shoulder, his eyes briefly leaving the road to meet mine. You are an incredible young man, Columbus. I hope you know that. We followed Patrick to his parents' house in the suburbs. A warm, inviting home I had visited countless times throughout college. As we pulled into the driveway, the front door opened, and Patrick's parents, the Harrises, came out to greet us. Columbus! Mrs. Harris exclaimed, rushing forward to envelope me in a warm hug. Patrick just called and told us what happened. I cannot believe it. Well, their loss is our gain. We are thrilled to host your celebration. Mr. Harris shook my hand firmly, then pulled me into a quick fatherly hug. Congratulations, son. We always knew you would do great things. Their sincere welcome brought a lump to my throat. Here was the warmth and acceptance I had been seeking from my own family, freely offered by people who had no obligation to me, beyond being my friend's parents. Thank you, I managed to say. This means a lot to me. Do not mention it, Mr. Harris said gruffly. We have watched you grow alongside Patrick these past 4 years. As far as we are concerned, your achievements deserve to be celebrated properly. Inside, the Harris' living room was already set up for their barbecue, with colorful paper lanterns hanging from the ceiling and a table laden with food and drinks. Mrs. Harris immediately went to work, sending Patrick to the garage to retrieve a banner they had used for their daughter's graduation the previous year. We will just cross out Jessica's name and put yours instead, she said with a wink. No one will notice. Patrick grinned as he returned with the banner. I am already texting everyone from our engineering group, he told me. They all want to come celebrate with you. Is that okay? I nodded, genuinely touched by his thoughtfulness. That would be great. While Patrick made calls and sent texts, Mrs. Harris pulled me aside. Columbus, I want you to know something, she said quietly. We have always considered you part of our family. The way you have worked so hard, supported Patrick through his tough times, and carried yourself with such dignity. We could not be prouder if you were our own son. Her words healed something in me that had been broken earlier that day. I had been denied recognition by people who should have given it freely, only to receive it in abundance from those who had no obligation to provide it. Thank you, Mrs. Harris, I said sincerely. That means more than I can say. Within an hour, the house began to fill with friends from college. My engineering study group arrived in a cluster, all still wearing their graduation attire and bearing impromptu gifts hastily purchased from the campus bookstore. 2 of my professors, including Dr. Wilson, made an appearance, having heard about the situation through the campus grapevine. I would not miss celebrating one of my most promising students, Dr. Wilson said, handing me a small wrapped package. This was going to be a graduation gift anyway, but the timing seems particularly appropriate now. Inside the package was a vintage slide rule that had belonged to his own mentor, a touching symbol of the passing of knowledge from one generation to the next. The doorbell rang again, and to my surprise, Uncle Thomas stood on the porch when Patrick opened the door. I hope I am not intruding, he said hesitantly. Patrick texted me the address. I moved forward to greet him. You are welcome here, Uncle Thomas. He stepped inside, looking slightly uncomfortable among strangers but determined nonetheless. I left that farce of a party, he explained. After what Fiona did, I could not stay there in good conscience. Several others left too, once they realized what had happened. You did not have to do that, I said, touched by his gesture. Yes, I did, he replied firmly. What happened today was wrong, Columbus. I want you to know that not everyone in the family shares Fiona's views. Some of us are genuinely proud of you. As the evening progressed, the impromptu celebration became exactly what I had hoped my graduation party would be. A genuine acknowledgement of my accomplishments surrounded by people who truly cared about me. We grilled burgers in the backyard, shared stories from our college years, and even had an impromptu awards ceremony, where Patrick presented me with a most likely to succeed despite family drama certificate that made everyone laugh. Later in the evening, I stepped outside for a moment of quiet reflection. The contrast between the cold exclusion I had faced earlier and the warm inclusion I was experiencing now could not have been more stark. My phone buzzed with a text message. To my surprise, it was from my cousin, Alyssa. I just found out what Mom did, the message read. I am so sorry, Columbus. I had no idea. This was wrong on every level. I want you to know I am proud of you and always considered you my cousin, regardless of what Mom says. I stared at the message, unsure how to respond. Alyssa and I had never been particularly close, largely due to Aunt Fiona's influence, but her reaching out now seemed genuine. Before I could decide whether to reply, Dr. Wilson joined me on the porch, leaning against the railing beside me. Quite a day, he remarked mildly. I laughed softly. That is one way to put it. You know, he said thoughtfully, in my experience, family is not always defined by blood. Sometimes, the people who truly understand and support us have no biological connection to us at all. I glanced back through the window at the gathering inside. Patrick and his parents, my father deep in conversation with Uncle Thomas, my college friends laughing together. None of them were obligated to be here. Yet they had all chosen to celebrate with me. I think I am beginning to understand that, I replied. Dr. Wilson nodded approvingly. The family we choose is often more meaningful than the one we are born into. It seems to me that you have chosen well, Columbus. As we rejoined the party, I carried his words with me, feeling a new sense of peace, despite the earlier turmoil. I raised my glass in a toast, looking around at the faces of those who had chosen to be there for me. To chosen family, I said simply. To chosen family, they echoed back, and in that moment, I knew that despite everything, I was exactly where I belonged. The morning after my improvised graduation celebration, I woke to the sound of my phone continuously buzzing with notifications. My social media feeds were flooded with photos from the official graduation party I had been excluded from. Seeing my mother, Aunt Fiona, and various relatives smiling for the camera while celebrating my achievement without me created a strange, hollow feeling in my chest. Even more unsettling were the numerous missed calls and text messages from my mother. Her texts ranged from defensive explanations to weak apologies. I hope you understand it was a difficult situation. Fiona insisted it was for the best. Please call me back so we can talk about this. I set my phone aside, not ready to engage with her excuses. After showering and dressing, I found my father in the kitchen of his modest apartment, where I had stayed the night. He was making coffee, his expression thoughtful. Sleep okay? He asked, sliding a mug toward me. Well enough, I replied, taking a grateful sip. Mom has been blowing up my phone. He nodded, unsurprised. Mine too. Along with some choice messages from Fiona. What are you going to do? He shrugged. Nothing for now. Some things cannot be resolved with a phone call or text message. This is one of them. I considered his words. I think I need to talk to Mom, though. Face to face. Get some answers. Are you sure that is what you want? He asked carefully. No, I admitted. But I think it is what I need. After breakfast, I texted my mother asking to meet at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory that would allow us to talk privately, but also give me the freedom to leave if things became too difficult. She agreed immediately. When I arrived at the coffee shop an hour later, my mother was already there, seated at a corner table with an untouched latte in front of her. She looked smaller somehow. Her usual, carefully maintained appearance, slightly disheveled, as if she had dressed in a hurry. "Columbus," she said as I approached, half rising from her seat. "Thank you for meeting me." I sat down across from her, ordering a simple black coffee, when the barista came over. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "I am sorry about yesterday," she finally said, her voice quiet. "It should not have happened that way." "No," I agreed calmly. "It should not have. But it did. And I need to understand why." She sighed, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her cup. Fiona thought. She thought it would be better if the celebration was kept within certain circles. She was concerned about potential tension between your father and Walter, and other considerations. "Mom," I interrupted, keeping my voice level with effort. "Let us be honest here. This was not about Dad or Walter. This was about me. Aunt Fiona has never considered me part of the family. And yesterday, she finally said it out loud. What I need to know is why you went along with it." My mother flinched at my directness. "It is not that simple, Columbus. It is exactly that simple," I countered. "I am your son. Yesterday was meant to celebrate my graduation. You let your sister bar me from my own celebration. There is no complexity that justifies that." Tears welled in her eyes. "You have to understand, Fiona has always been dominant. Since we were children, she has been the one who makes decisions, who determines what is acceptable and what is not. After your father and I divorced, she was my only support system. I could not afford to lose that. So you sacrificed your relationship with me instead," I said, the hurt evident in my voice despite my attempts to remain detached. "I never meant to," she whispered. "It just happened. A little at a time. First, it was small things, like holiday arrangements, or where you would spend summer breaks. Then, bigger things. Fiona would make these decisions, and it was easier to go along than to fight her." "Easier for you," I pointed out. "Not for me." She had no response to that, her gaze dropping to the table. "All these years," I continued, "I have made excuses for you. I told myself you were caught in the middle, that you were doing your best. But yesterday showed me the truth. When it really mattered, you chose Aunt Fiona's approval over your own son. I was weak," she admitted, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I have always been weak where Fiona is concerned. She has this way of making me feel like I cannot survive without her approval." "Do you know what I realized yesterday?" I asked. "I realized that I have been waiting my entire life for you to choose me, to stand up for me, to be the mother I needed. And you never have." She reached across the table, trying to take my hand, but I gently pulled back. "Columbus, please. I want to make this right." "I am not sure you can," I said honestly. "But if you want any kind of relationship with me going forward, things have to change. I will not be an afterthought in your life anymore. I will not accept being treated as less than by Aunt Fiona or anyone else. And I will not pretend that what happened yesterday was okay." "What are you saying?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I am saying that I am setting boundaries. If you want to be part of my life, you need to respect them. That means not letting Aunt Fiona dictate your relationship with me. It means standing up for me when I am being mistreated. It means being a mother. Not just when it is convenient, but all the time." She nodded slowly, more tears falling. "I understand, and I want to try. Columbus. I really do. Actions, Mom," I said firmly, not words. I have heard promises before. Our conversation continued for another hour, delving into years of hurt and misunderstanding. For perhaps the first time, My mother spoke honestly about her own insecurities and the dysfunctional dynamics with her sister. She revealed that Fiona had actively sabotaged potential reconciliations between us over the years, feeding my mother's fears that I resented her or did not want a relationship. She would tell me, "You were just like your father," my mother admitted. That you had his stubbornness, his inability to forgive. She convinced me that giving you space was better than pushing for a closer relationship. That was never true, I said quietly. All I ever wanted was to feel like I mattered to you. When we finally parted, nothing was fully resolved. But something had shifted. I had spoken my truth without anger or recrimination, simply stating the facts of my experience and my needs going forward. Whether my mother could meet those needs remained to be seen. But I felt lighter for having expressed them. When I returned to my father's apartment that evening, I found several packages waiting for me. They were graduation gifts from friends who had attended the celebration at Patrick's house. Simple but thoughtful items that reflected their understanding of who I was and what mattered to me. My father was waiting with news of his own. "I have been saving for a while," he said, handing me an envelope. "This was going to be my graduation gift to you." Inside was information about a trip. A 2-week journey through the national parks of the western United States that we had often talked about taking someday. "Dad, this is too much," I protested, knowing how tight his finances were. "No," he said firmly. "It is exactly right. Before you start your new job, before real adult life takes over, I want us to have this time together. You deserve it. Columbus." Later that evening, Uncle Thomas called with an unexpected offer. "I have a condo in the city," he said, "near where you will be working at Anderson Engineering. I hardly use it these days, and I was thinking, maybe you would like to stay there until you get settled? Save some money on rent while you are starting out?" His generosity left me momentarily speechless. "Uncle Thomas, that is incredibly kind. But, no buts," he interrupted. "Consider it a graduation gift. And maybe a small apology for not seeing sooner how you were being treated by certain family members." As I was processing this offer, my phone rang again. This time, it was my grandfather, my mother's father, who lived in Florida and rarely made it to family events due to his health. "Columbus," his gravelly voice came through the speaker. "I just heard what happened at your graduation celebration. I want you to know that if I had been there, things would have gone very differently." "Thanks, Grandpa," I said, touched by his call. "I have already given your aunt a piece of my mind," he continued. "And I wanted to invite you down here for a weekend. Just you. I may not have many years left. And I would like to spend some time with my grandson. Get to know the man you have become." By the end of the day, I found myself surrounded by evidence that, despite Aunt Fiona's efforts to exclude me, there were people in my life, even within my extended family, who genuinely valued me. The realization was both healing and bittersweet. As I prepared for bed that night, I reflected on the remarkable contrast between the rejection I had faced at the restaurant and the abundant support that had flowed toward me in its aftermath. Perhaps, I thought, being turned away from that celebration was not the tragedy it had initially seemed, but rather the catalyst for something far more valuable: clarity about who truly deserved a place in my life going forward. 2 months after graduation, I began my position at Anderson Engineering. The transition from student to professional was both challenging and exhilarating, filled with new responsibilities and opportunities to apply everything I had learned. My days were busy with projects, team meetings, and the process of establishing myself in my new role. Uncle Thomas's condo had proven to be the perfect starting point for this chapter of my life. Located just 15 minutes from my office, it allowed me to settle into my career without the immediate pressure of finding affordable housing in an expensive city. True to his word, Uncle Thomas rarely used the place, stopping by only occasionally when business brought him to town. During these visits, our relationship grew stronger. Without Aunt Fiona's interference, I discovered that my uncle was a thoughtful, interesting man with a dry sense of humor and a wealth of industry knowledge that he was happy to share. He introduced me to several of his professional contacts, expanding my network and providing valuable mentorship. My relationship with my father also evolved during this period. Our national parks trip had been a transformative experience. 2 weeks of hiking, photography, and conversations under star-filled skies. Away from the pressures and painful history of our extended family, we connected not just as father and son, but as two adults who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. I am proud of how you have handled everything, he told me one evening as we sat watching the sunset over the Grand Canyon. You have every right to be angry, to cut people off. But instead, you are setting boundaries with dignity. That takes real strength. My approach to my mother was exactly that. Firm boundaries coupled with cautious openness to change. After our coffee shop conversation, she had made tentative efforts to improve our relationship. She called regularly, asked thoughtful questions about my work, and, most significantly, began declining invitations that excluded me. The first time she chose to skip a family gathering because I had not been invited, she called to tell me about her decision. Fiona was furious, she admitted. But I told her that I will not participate in events that deliberately exclude my son. It was harder than I expected, but also freeing. Somehow, it was a small step, but a meaningful one. I remained cautious, waiting to see if this change would last or fade when the pressure increased. Trust, once broken, could not be instantly restored, but I acknowledged her effort and remained open to the possibility of healing. Aunt Fiona, predictably, had not taken my newfound independence well. She continued to exert control over family events, but her influence had diminished. My conversation with my mother had exposed years of manipulation, and as other family members learned the full story of what had happened at the graduation celebration, many began to question patterns they had previously accepted without thought. My cousins Travis and Alyssa reached out independently, expressing embarrassment about their mother's behavior and a desire to establish their own relationships with me. Alyssa, in particular, seemed eager to connect, confessing that she had always envied my close relationship with my father and my academic success. Mom always made it seem like you did not want anything to do with us, she explained during a lunch meeting. I never questioned it until now. These reconciliations were tentative and sometimes awkward. Years of separation, creating gaps that could not be quickly bridged. But they represented possibilities I had not imagined existed before the graduation incident forced everything into the open. One of the most unexpected developments came from my grandfather. True to his word, he had invited me to Florida for a weekend visit, which turned into a 4-day fishing trip that became one of the highlights of my summer. At 78, he was still sharp and vigorous, full of stories about my mother's childhood and insights into the family dynamics that had shaped her relationship with Aunt Fiona. Your aunt was always jealous of your mother, he revealed, as we sat on his boat one morning. Eleanor was prettier, more popular in school, but Fiona was cunning. She figured out early that if she could make your mother dependent on her approval, she would always have the upper hand. Why did you never intervene? I asked, curious rather than accusatory. He sighed, his weathered face somber. By the time I recognized what was happening, the pattern was set. After your grandmother died, it got worse. I tried talking to Eleanor, but Fiona had such a hold on her by then. He looked at me directly. I should have tried harder. I am sorry for that. Columbus. His honesty was refreshing, and over those 4 days, we built a connection that felt more authentic than any I had experienced with my extended family. Before I left, he pressed a set of keys into my hand. This place will be yours someday, he said gruffly, but there is no reason you cannot use it now, when you need a break. Family should support each other. That is what we are supposed to do. Beyond my biological family, I continued to nurture the relationships that had proven their worth. Patrick remained my closest friend, our bond strengthened by his unwavering support during the graduation debacle. Dr. Wilson became a valued mentor, offering guidance as I navigated the early stages of my professional life. The Harrises continued to include me in family gatherings, treating me with the same warmth and acceptance they showed their own children. Their home became a place of refuge, a reminder that family could be defined by love and mutual respect, rather than mere DNA. Through therapy, a journey I began a month after starting my job, I worked to process the complex emotions surrounding my family history. My therapist, Dr. Rivera, helped me understand that while I could not change my past experiences, I could choose how those experiences shaped my future. The patterns we grow up with often feel inevitable, she observed, but they are not. You can choose different patterns for your own life. This insight became a guiding principle as I established my adult life. I was intentional about the relationships I cultivated, seeking connections based on mutual respect and genuine care, rather than obligation or convenience. I practiced setting healthy boundaries, not just with my family but in all areas of my life. Most importantly, I learned to recognize my own worth, independent of others' validation. The exclusion I had experienced at my graduation celebration, painful as it was, had ultimately been clarifying. It had forced me to confront the reality of certain relationships and make conscious choices about how to proceed. 6 months after graduation, I received an invitation to a holiday gathering at Aunt Fiona's house. For the first time, my name was explicitly included on the invitation. I considered declining out of principle but ultimately decided to attend, curious to see what had prompted this change. The gathering was predictably tense at first, with Aunt Fiona maintaining a cool politeness that stopped short of genuine welcome. But other family members made efforts to engage with me, to include me in conversations and activities. My mother, to my surprise, stayed close by my side throughout the evening, a physical demonstration of her changed priorities. As I prepared to leave, Aunt Fiona approached me. "I understand you are doing well at Anderson," she said stiffly. "I am," I replied simply. "Good." She nodded. "That island. Good. Good." It was not an apology, not even close, but it was an acknowledgement, however grudging, of my existence and achievements. I accepted it for what it was, neither expecting nor needing more from her. In the car afterward, my father asked how I felt about the evening. "Honestly," I said, considering the question carefully, "I feel free. For so long, I wanted their approval, their inclusion. Now I realize that my worth was never dependent on their recognition of it." He smiled, reaching over to squeeze my shoulder. "That is the most valuable lesson any of us can learn." And it was true. The painful exclusion from my graduation celebration had ultimately given me something far more precious than any party could have. The freedom to define family on my own terms, to build relationships based on genuine connection rather than obligation, and to recognize my inherent value regardless of others' perceptions. As I move forward in life, I carry this understanding with me. Family is not merely a matter of blood. It is a choice we make every day through our actions, our respect, and our love. The people who truly belong in our lives are those who choose to see us, support us, and celebrate our achievements without condition or calculation. If you are watching this and have ever felt excluded or undervalued by people who should have celebrated you, know that you are not alone. Your worth is not determined by others' ability to recognize it. Sometimes, the most painful rejections lead us to the most meaningful connections if we have the courage to remain open to them. Have you ever experienced a painful exclusion that ultimately led to something positive? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that they are valuable, regardless of how others treat them. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, true family is defined by love, not by blood or obligation.